Well, I could list 400 different changes. But the interesting thing to me about education is that, and I hate to use this word, but it's true, fads come and go. And so oftentimes something becomes the thing and it fades. And there comes another thing and it fades, and we may go back to the previous one. Part of that has to do with the fact, and it exists today, that many of the people who have power to make change are really not seriously connected to teachers and children. And that I can prove that statement. It's not just an emotional kind of thing. I think some of the big changes, though, and really it has happened over time, is we have really become a test-driven K-12. We have great emphasis on science and math. We judge the accomplishment of teachers against standardized test scores, and that's despite the fact that research would tell us not to do that. One of my areas of expertise is assessment evaluation. What we are doing in many ways is the antithesis of what research would tell us to do. So more and more stress on what is deemed objective evaluation, but it loses sight of the time and energy that is invested in that, and the money really drives a curriculum which does not fully educate kids. The biggest change, which in my teaching goes back many years, is the importance of technology. And I can tell you that someone who was not good with that change in terms of my skill sets, we really, as institutions, did not do a good job of helping people teaching in K-12 in particular to master the skills, but again, we made demands. And we spent a considerable sum of money on technology. So I think in a negative sense, emphasis on standardized testing and pushing technology as the way are big changes that impact the day-to-day life of the classroom. I think from another kind of direction, I would say that when I was a kid, there was no such thing as special education. When I was in high school, there was no such thing as special education. By the time I got to college, we were beginning to hear about special needs children, and by the time I got to graduate school, we had actually had special education curriculum, and I spent a considerable amount of time taking classes in special needs children. I think one of the interesting things that says how old I am is when I was in graduate school, we were just beginning to think about learning disabilities. And I had a faculty person who really was into that, and so he was kind enough to take me on for an independent study. We then moved into the federal demand for special education, public law 94-142, which was in the 70s, and we said that all children are entitled to a free public education. and we need to provide the best possible education. Sounds wonderful. I was thrilled. However, we never really funded special education. And so again, we put the kids and the teachers in a real bind. We've moved away from self-contained classes to integrating those children in the regular classroom, and again, without giving significant support to teachers. So we've struggled, as nationally, to say, how do we serve all kids? How can education be equal? We haven't done a good job. If we fast forward to today, the pandemic, who lost the most? Who got the least help? Special needs kids. Who suffered? Because we said, okay, yay, we can provide technology, kids can learn at home. Who suffered? Poor kids. So we have a habit of coming up with good ideas, but never ever stepping back and saying, what's the actual cost? What's the delivery system? Every day I read of how much kids have lost because of the pandemic. But we still measure with standardized tests. And I think that's probably, in terms of my own view of K-12, we bring in an idea and we don't carry it to fruition. Personal story, when I was an intern at IPS, I spent a lot of time in the big building on Walnut Street. And I needed something, and I asked for it, and the person took me to the room. I said, what is this? And she said, we get grants, and we buy stuff, equipment, books, etc. But when the grants run out, that goes away, and we look for another grant. So as we got bigger, as demands got bigger, we lost a lot of what we thought we had gained. I would say the other change in education has to do with how we look at teachers. When I was a kid, teachers were highly valued. You know, the basic statement from my mother was, trouble at school, trouble at home. The role of the teacher the demands on teachers have gotten greater and greater and greater and greater. The loss of esteem for teachers has been very, very high. And so I think that's a change, a dramatic cultural shift in how we think about teachers. And I think the other thing is, as I always tell my teacher friends, the number of people who have their finger in the pie. Who has the authority to tell teachers what they must do? The number of those people has increased exponentially. I should have brought the t-shirt that one of my students gave me when I retired, which essentially is saying those who can teach, the rules about teaching are made by the state legislature, who knows nothing about teaching. So anyway, I tend to agree with that statement, as you might